Hello YouTube, I'm Jack Clark, TheYGOMusketeer, coming to you with a deck profile. Hello, how are you? So of course today I'm going to be coming to you with an AggroWatt deck profile. Now, MCOL40 has his gadgets, Dragonfly skills has her dragons, and I have my Watts. I mean, it's the deck I'm most known for in real life, and I guess necessarily on YouTube as well. On my previous channels, of course, this was my deck. If you ever had problems with it, come to Watts. Come to Jack. Jack knows everything about Watts. But of course, this is going to be my AggroWatt deck profile. Now, there are two main ways of running Watts. Ones that use the Watt Hopper lock, and of course ones that don't. And those ones are much faster, much more aggressive, hence the name Aggro. However, with the release of Thunder Seahorse in Abyss Rising, we now have a much faster deck, a deck that can amount crazy hand advantage and is just ridiculous. So I'm going to go through that deck with you. This is SeahorseWatts, as I like to call it, but this is just AggroWatts basically. So of course, let's go with the cards, and then I'll go through some of how the deck plays and some of the choices behind them. So we've got Thunder Seahorse, 3 copies of it. We've got 2 copies of Mahunda, 1 copy of Honest, 2 Tragodia, 3 Watt Cobra, 3 Watt Giraffe, 1 Watt Pheasant, and 3 Watt Dragonfly. Our spell cards are pretty minimal and obvious as well. 2 Duality, 2 MST, Heavy, Dark Hole, and Monster Reborn. So no surprises there. Our trap lineup is pretty expansive with 2 Torrential Tribute, 2 Bottomless Trap Hole, Solemn Brigade, we have the Starlight Road, we have 3 Threatening Roars, 2 Rubbercoo, and 2 Dimensional Prisons. So with this deck, of course, the entire point of it is so you can attack your opponent directly with your Cobras and your Giraffes, and reduce their life points down to 0. Of course, they are very weak monsters, but the damage they can do in single attacks greatly outweighs the fact that they're so weak, so that's very, very good. And generally, as a rule of thumb, you'll attack directly and then have some kind of form of protection to back them up, so that you can maintain and continue doing direct attacks, and with Cobra get more pluses from the attacks, and with Giraffe stop your opponent from making plays while you can continue to make plays during main phase 2, or of course attack their monsters and they have no effects or something. And of course you'll attack with these normally with your Threatening Walls and Rabacoos and your Dimensional Prisons, backing them up so that you can continue to make more direct attacks and more pluses from them. And that's generally how AggroWatts worked. However, with the new use of Thunder Seahorse, you get to search for your Cobra and your Giraffe, and Mahunda in this case, and of course itself, so much faster. So of course I'm using 3 copies of it because I love using it. It's self-targeting, which is fantastic, and of course you want to maximize the chance of you getting it in your opening hand. Of course you can use less copies. To be fair, any number of this is good in AggroWatts because it's good in AggroWatts. Because if you're using less than 3 copies, then instead of first turn using it and then searching for 2 copies of itself, so you can search for your Cobra and your Giraffe later on in the duel, or of course your Mahunda, you can just simply go for your Cobra first turn. So in this deck, I like, literally, if I get in my first turn, I'll discard it, get 2 more, later turns I will get Cobra, and then if I still have a Seahorse in hand, which I most likely will, I'll go for Mahunda, and then after Mahunda, I'll go for the Giraffe. Now, the reason why I go in that specific order, of course, is because Cobra is the pillar of this deck. You attack directly, it can direct directly, do 1,000 damage, and you get another Watt. So that means you can search for another Cobra to do more damage and get more advantage from. You can go for a Giraffe and be annoying, or of course you can go for a Pheasant and attack directly and get rid of your opponent's tokens and their exeses, get rid of their materials on them. Or, of course, if you want to be a bit more defensive and you don't have the resources to protect your direct attackers, you can go for Dragonflies. So it's really ridiculously good. So you always want to try and get this first onto the field as fast as possible. This is the Stratos of the deck, and it is one of the main win conditions. Next off, of course, you will not be going for your Giraffe. It's not as important as going for Mahunda next, because what I found out with this deck, whilst testing it, is that you can gain insane amounts of hand advantage with Seahorse, which is obvious. However, the thing is with Seahorse is that this deck, alongside the Cobra and other advantage gaining cards, gives you a little bit too much hand advantage that you can't actually utilize effectively. Because of course the Watts, they are a slow deck, they use their normal summon, and they attack directly, and they do damage to get groovy effects, and hopefully slowly reduce your opponent's life points down to 0. Now of course the AggroWatt deck is much more able to win a little bit faster than that, but of course it wasn't able to attack directly and then use the advantage it's got and put it onto the field as fast as possible. So with Mahunda, you're able to do that. You're allowed to summon it, and then of course you can normal summon it again, which means you can use up your hand advantage a little bit easier. It allows you to be a little bit less conservative with your plays, unlike previous AggroWatt decks which don't use Seahorse. But to be fair, a lot of the time you have to use this card, even if it means you'll run into a torrential or whatever. I have had times when I've had like 11 cards in my hand due to a combination of my Cobras or my Seahorse, and I've had to discard cards during the end phase because I haven't been able to put that hand advantage into field advantage effectively. So my Hunter allows you to put more cards onto the field. In addition to that, you summon it. Summon your Cobra or your Giraffe, you attack directly with either of those, and then you can Xyz because it's level 4. So, most cases you can go for a Utopia. Of course, you don't have to. I mean, it's only got 1400 attack points, which isn't too good, but if you can protect the Giraffe with a Threatening Roar or a Wabaku, then the Mahanda will also be protected, just simply because they're protected. So, it's very good. I really like this card in this deck, especially with the Seahorses. In addition to that, it's also a target for the Seahorse. So, of course, if I draw double Cobra in my opening hand, then oh no, what am I going to do? Don't worry, I still have another target in the deck. So it's very useful to have another target, but it allows you to put more cards onto the field, which is the primary use for it, and of course gives you better access to your Xyzes, which is very good in this deck, because if you need to now, you can go for Utopia without minusing yourself, and of course she looks badass. But yeah. Anyway, going on, of course we have Honest and we have Tragodias. Now, Honest, of course, the deck is light-based, and it's another form of protection whilst being able to do damage. So you can protect your Cobra or your Giraffe, do damage, protect it, yay, Honest. It's pretty self-explanatory in that situation, to be fair. But then we have Tragodia, and like I said, this deck can create amazing hand advantage. And of course, if you can sit on that advantage, Tragodia is ridiculous. So as another form of protection, because, well, your opponent's not going to want to be attacking this huge monster, which will have 3,600 on some cases or more, it's very, very useful. In addition, it gives you another way of using up your hand advantage by getting rid of a card in your hand, of course, to take control of one of their, most likely will be a level 4 monster you take control of, since the deck is mainly level 4s. It also can modulate its level down to level 4, so if you want to, you can Xyz with it. It is a ridiculously good card, and I have had games which I've literally won because, oh no, I didn't draw any of my Watts or my Thunders. Oh, who cares? I'm just going to sit on it, and when I do get my Seahorse, the Seahorse goes from 1 card to 2 cards, which means Tragodia gets another 600 attack point boost. It's so good if you can protect it as well, and the trap lineup is able to do that so well. So, of course, since I've explained the previous cards, the Watts actually need no real explanation. Of course, Cobra is the most important one. You attack directly, you get your pluses. Giraffe, you attack directly with it, doing a little bit more damage, and of course, stopping your opponent from doing anything else that turn, which is very useful, especially during main phase 2. So, if you normal summon your Mahunda, summon your Giraffe, attack directly with Giraffe, main phase 2, you can go for your rank 4, and your opponent cannot stop that rank 4. So, yeah. In addition to that, you attack directly with Giraffe. Your opponent does Gauze. Yep, they chain Gauze to the effective Giraffe. They summon their Gauze, but they don't get their token, which is even better. I love that. Considering that Gauze itself, yeah, sure, it's a little bit more manageable than whatever the token is. But it also means that they don't get that token. So they can't just summon Veiler, go for a level 8 Synchro, and they can't just use it to kill you with. But Giraffe has so many uses in this deck. But yeah, of course we have a copy of Pheasant as well. I never like drawing this card. If I can search for it there, that's fine, but it's a direct attacker, and if my opponent has a token on the field that's being annoying, or if they have an Xyz monster that's causing me trouble, then I can attack directly, banish that monster until the end of the turn. It comes back, but if it's an Xyz monster, it doesn't have any materials, and if it's a token, it doesn't come back at all. And of course, this card actually does help me with my battle against Ryo. I hate Ryo. Ryo is the bane of this deck's existence, but a good way of doing it is that you attack directly with this Pheasant, and then you banish the Ryo. You can then attack with your Cobras. Main phase 2, you can then use your Thunder Seahorses, and of course during the end of the turn the Ryo comes back, but you've still been able to make your pluses. I'm still using free Watt Dragonfly. Watt Dragonfly, of course, is still a ridiculously good card, but of course made a little bit more redundant with the fact that you can search for your Cobras with your Cobras and your Seahorses, and you don't really need it as much. But what the thing is with it, though, is that it gives you a good set. Now, of course, you don't special summon with this deck, but in a lot of the cases, you won't be able to effectively just summon your direct attackers and then just, oh yay, I'm going to win now. A lot of the times you do need to set, and it does suck having to set your direct attackers, so having a Dragonfly is even better, especially considering its effect activates whenever it's destroyed by battle or by card effect. So, yeah, you're going to Torrential? Yeah, sure. Dragonfly. And what I do like with what Dragonfly is that I can attack with it because all their attack points are so low. It's got 900 attack points. It's only like 100 less than most of them. But in addition to that, if I summon this and I have it in an attack position during the battle phase, my opponent will think twice about mirror forcing me. And if they do mirror force me, then hey, no worries. I can always just Dragonfly gets destroyed, summon the Cobra from my deck, or a dragon, or a giraffe, or a pheasant, or whatever I need. The battles phase shenanigans with it is very, very useful, and I have had games where I've just poked and poked and poked the Dragonfly with the Dragonfly for death, and knowing fully well that he can't be destroyed without giving me another monster, which will lead normally in another plus. Of course, the spell card lineup doesn't need any explanation. Of course, I did in previous builds use Soul Taker in the main deck because I don't like Ryo at all. I'm not using it in this one simply because I quite like siding it. I don't like giving my opponent the 1,000 life points because, of course, well, it absolutely counteracts one of my direct attacks in most of the cases. But it's very good just getting rid of Ryo, but my trap lineup I think is actually a bit more suited to it. So, of course, the Torrentials, the Bottomlesses, and the Solemn Brigade somewhat can stop my opponent's summons. Torrential is... People who don't like using 2 are just silly. I know people don't like using it. Sometimes they don't want to. Like, you'll have a field of really big monsters. But this is amazing. Of course, my monsters are very weak. So there'll be those times when, oh no, my opponent's going to summon the monster and I can't do shit. I don't have enough of protection. But hey, no worries, man. I'm going to use this and destroy everything. So you have to start from scratch. And most likely, I'll just need to summon another monster. Which probably will be a Cobra that I would have already gotten from the Cobra that I've just destroyed. So it's very good, and I just love it. Go against Agents or 6 Samurais, I just love it. I win so many games due to this card. It's my opponent, oh okay, summon Venus, okay, pay 1500 life points, summon my Shiny Balls, summon Birdman, bounce, 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 and then I'm going to, okay, and now I've got my Birdman, yeah sure, I'm going to pay another 500 life points to summon my other Shiny Ball, and then I'm going to go for a Synchro. Wait a minute right there, Torrential Tribute, bosh. Shit. You just paid 2,000 life points and now we've got nothing on the field. Ding ding. Awesome card is awesome. Use 2, otherwise you're a very silly person. Bottomless Trap Holes. I did side these before, of course. But actually, no. Fuck that. I hate Ryo. And actually, there are a lot of cards. It's nice to be able to just stop them. I mean, I like being able to, oh, look, you summon Stratos. Bye, Stratos. Bye. Or just my opponent summons anything, really. Because Bottomless Trap Hole is awesome. Of course, Solemn Warning and Solemn Judgment are pretty self-explanatory. Stop any summons. Yeah, you're going to Black Rose me? No. You're going to summon a big ass disease monster? No. You're going to do anything? No. Of course, I've got a Starlight Road, and the Starlight Road I didn't normally use in previous builds, but of course, with my greater emphasis on my back row and needing to protect said back row, Starlight Road is invaluable, and of course I do kind of flip-flop between this and the Huge Revolution is over, because I'm finding people are starting to side Trap Stun, and of course they can side the traps, they can use this, they can chain Trap Stun to it, and of course it is susceptible to Solemn Warning, but being able to summon that Stardust Dragon is just gorgeous. However, I do flip-flop between Huge Revolution is over in this, because even though the Stardust Dragon is nice, you don't need it, and also the Huge Revolution is over can stop stuff like Scrap Dragon, and it can also banish it. So instead of, like, if you're going up against Scraps, for example, you banish their Scrap Dragon, and then they don't get their monster. Yay! Which is always good. But yeah, let's get to the last few traps, and that is the Threatening Roars, the Wabbaku, and the Torrential Prisons. Now, the main form of protection in this deck is the Threatening Roars and the Wabbakus. Now, of course, Threatening Roar, everyone's seen this card. It's quite an infamous card, and it's, of course, seen great use in the winning Executor deck in the YCS Seattle deck list. Actually, if you look at my Facebook page, you'll see a screenshot of me someone who was net decking it. So that was fun. But Threatening Roar in this deck is really, really important alongside Wabbaku. Of course, generally how the deck plays out is you'll attack directly with one of your monsters, which is very good, and then you'll protect them with one of these so that next turn you can attack again, get pluses or whatever effects from it. So if you can protect your Cobra with one of these, you can get more pluses from it. So it actually doesn't matter the fact that it doesn't get you advantage. It protects all your monsters, which are relatively weak, and that is awesome. I find that 3 Threatening Roar and 2 Wabbaku is the best ratio. I don't like using 3 Wabbaku simply because, well, you'll draw it too much. But in addition to that, using 3 Wabbaku as opposed to like 2 Threatening Roars or something is horrible, because if I ever do go against Gladiator Beasts, because I always find Gladiator Beasts randomly, I hate Gladiator Beasts because of War Chariot, but of course I do side the preferred Wabaku simply because it is so much fun with Watt Skrill, which I side, and using it with Watt Skrill was just ridiculous because, of course, you use it and your opponent attacks your Watt Skrill. Oh no, your opponent's effect's negated, but also my monster's not destroyed. Bosh. And of course, I can attack them and then get two attacks with my Skrill, it being completely protected, but 2 of your monsters' effects being negated, even when it goes to the graveyard. Woo! But generally it's used as just another way of protection, and also Catasta is the main reason why I only use 2. And of course, the last 2 cards are Dimensional Prisons. I did used to use Magic Cylinders in this deck, however, of course, I hate Ryo, and I want to annoy my opponent much more. And of course, Magic Cylinder does win games, and of course you can use that in place of Dimensional Prison. But if I can banish my opponent's Ryo, then it actually does me a lot greater good. And of course, it can stop a lot of other cards. Okay, you're going to ram your Zen mains into my Tragodia. Sorry, Dimensional Prison. Fuck you. But yeah, that's pretty much it. If you have any questions in regards to the deck, then do give me a message. Of course, I am Jack Clark, the TheYGOMusketeer. More videos coming out to you soon, but until then, goodbye.